Review today. Today's on abundance. I have my Ben Franklin pillow. I just felt inspired to sit in a different part of the apartment today. So we are talking all the abundance vibes. And before we do anything else, let's center, meditate, clear the space. I invite you to go ahead and close your eyes. I invite you to go ahead and get comfortable. You can roll your shoulders back. You can sit palms face up. And really connect and lean into your breath. Breathe in, into your diaphragm, into your belly. Hold at the top. When you feel like you can't breathe in anymore, breathe in extra. Hold at the top. Release. Again, just coming into this space, you can close your eyes. Put a hand on your belly. Breathe in. Breathe into your chest. Hold at the top. Release. And I invite you to call to mind your own personal definition and interpretation of the word abundance. This can be a loaded term, and it means different things to different people. Think about your own personal interpretation, your own personal definition. Maybe even call to mind a time where you felt the most abundant. Maybe it's a time where you accomplished a seemingly impossible goal. Maybe it's a time where you were able to provide resources for yourself, for your family. We're consciously calling into mind this energy of abundance. And I invite you to set an intention for our time together during day 3. The 2023 Gold Detox. And think about any expectations, limitations, shortcomings that you're ready to rid yourself of before the new year. Any disappointments where you're ready to energetically take the eraser to the chalkboard and make them meaningless. And I invite you to even consciously do this now, where you're imagining a chalkboard. And on your chalkboard are any financial or material goals. This can even be related to your career. Any goals that you set for yourself that simply didn't happen this year. I invite you to imagine this chalkboard with those goals. And I want you to see yourself taking the eraser. You can even do the thing where you kind of like, get the chalk out of the eraser. And you're taking this eraser to the chalkboard. And you're just releasing and erasing and making it mean nothing. Because you always get to choose again. You always get to set new goals, new standards, new ways of being. You get to ultimately decide what works for you. And just because you set a goal in the past and it didn't happen, it means nothing about you. It means nothing about where you're going. It means nothing about where you're headed. It means nothing about you as a person. Once you start to look at your goals differently, and you kind of detangle the way you view yourself in the pursuit of these goals, you untangle the meaning that these goals have, what it means about you, the more easily and quickly you will find yourself actually accomplishing the things you're setting out to do. I want you to lean into that and just realize that every second is a chance to start over. Every second is a chance to start again. So with this renewed energy, with our intention of abundance, I invite you to come back into the space. You can wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, move side to side. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. Hello, and thank you so much for joining me for day 3 of the 2023 Gold Detox. So, I have some notes today. Today is on abundance. And before we get started, I actually want to tell you a really interesting story. I started studying money manifestation through Manifestation Babe in 2023. And No, I started studying money manifestation in 2019, and Manifestation Babe was the first person who I was introduced through. And at the time, I was living in Waxhaw, North Carolina. And when I was in Waxhaw, I was at my rock bottom. I was living with my dad. I quit my job and was working for far less money at a job that I couldn't understand the nature of my decisions. But ultimately, it was very necessary. It was a necessary part of my journey, and it led to where I'm at currently. And at the time, I was volunteering at a bookstore in Waxhaw, North Carolina. And at this bookstore, it was the first place where they sold bookmarks. That was like the first product Allison Ziggy ever had. And it was all donation based, so the donations went back into the bookstore. Okay. And I bought something at the bookstore and I got change. And the dollar bill that I got from the bookstore had a serial number on it. And the serial number was all nines. And what was so fascinating to me was that the value of this dollar bill was almost $2,000 for a $1 bill. And it was like, as I was learning about money manifestation, this dollar bill came to me and it felt like the ultimate symbol. I have it framed above my desk, and it felt like the ultimate symbol of abundance and the symbol of the interpretation of just anything is possible, and like you can create whatever you desire. And it just felt like such a significant marker. So since then, I'm like, look at all this money I have. I'm like, I need to get like stills that I can use for my photos. Okay, I guess I'll take selfies after this. So anyway, since then, I've actually started to pay attention to serial numbers on bills. And so when I was in Vegas, I'm just thinking about the times in my life where money has seemingly come out of thin air. And so there was this other time in Las Vegas where I won $1,000 on a slot machine. And so I'm showing you this where it's like, I look at the serial numbers and this $100 bill has a serial number that says 222. And I always thought that was so amazing. And so I've just started to pay attention to little things like this, because to me, this one has 888, which like symbolizes abundance. And so I just keep these with me. And I keep these and I don't spend them, just kind of as a reminder to, it's almost that like turning straw into gold energy, or just that reminder that literally anything is possible. And so it was just, for me, when I got that, it just really symbolized this concept and this idea that anything was possible. And so that was like the first dollar I quote unquote made in my business was, and I still have it above my desk, was from that Waxhaw bookstore and the serial number. So okay, I'm going to pull up, I took some notes on today. So today, my intention for day 3, my intention for today was to share what is meaningful and necessary as a means to helping people who are either experiencing shame and or guilt or feelings of lack pertaining to finance, abundance, money, etc. So when we first did the meditation, I asked you to define abundance for yourself and think about how you interpret what it means to be abundant. And for me, abundance represents this concept and this idea of having more than enough. Not only are all your needs met, but you're able to show up as the fullest, highest version of yourself. So in terms of money, I don't necessarily say that money and abundance are the same thing, because I look at abundance as this energy of just feeling good. And I was thinking about today, and I was thinking about the title, and I was thinking about this concept of alignment. And I was like, oh, abundance, should I make this alignment instead? Because alignment to me is a concept that I talk about a lot, where alignment means there's nowhere else I would rather be and nothing else I would rather be doing right now. And I think abundance is kind of an amplification of alignment. So you can align to abundance, you can align to things in your life. Abundance pertains to a specific part of life. I think alignment's kind of an overarching, pertains to many areas. But when I was thinking about what abundance means, it's synonymous with the experience of feeling good. It's the feeling of following your desires and being rewarded for it, so to speak. So it's that feeling of having a desire to go to a new coffee place and then having the coffee be comped. It's this energy, you know, this energy when you're just magnetic, where things just seem to be flowing for you. You're just in the flow. Every single thing is just going your way. This is how I define abundance. Abundance is It's this tangible representation of alignment. It's this, I like feeling pulled into a specific store and finding the perfect outfit that enables you to shine in your true self-expression. It's just this means of amplifying who you already are. And so with my intention today of kind of ridding away of the sense of lack that comes along with this is kind of just embracing where you're at with this year. And I look at 2024 and what I've been looking to accomplish. And I haven't been able to sit down and set the goals until I've made peace with where I've been at in 2023. And I invite you to take the same energy, because I look at the sense of lack that I felt when I was at my last job. I was making a lot more money than I was making in my business. And I had to make this decision. Okay, we had some technical difficulties there. Day 3, goal detox. Make sure to check out the first video for a fire meditation, because the meditation was where we aligned, the meditation was where we centered, the meditation was where we got into the flow of abundance. I needed to reset the energy. Thank you for your patience with me, but we are back and we are here to talk about abundance. And I want to talk about this, and I think the reason I had some discomfort was that I have so much experience in this area. I worked in sales for 10 plus years. I was an account executive and I worked with customers. Money was like the thing that drove me throughout my 20s, okay? I used to be so obsessed with my job that it was like my identity was tied in how well I did at work. My identity was tied to how I performed, how much profit I brought in, how much revenue each month, the way that my customer base grew. And after 4 years, the pay structure with my current company actually changed. And so when this happened, it resulted in a $40,000 pay cut. And when this happened, at the time, I could not conceptualize how I could continue to do the same job for less money. And I would sit and I would look around as the people around me who had been there for a less amount of time were being paid more than I was as I was working this job, and I was arguably more valuable. And so this was my first experience, just feeling like my worth had always been tied to my job, and I felt like worthless once the company basically said, you're no longer as valuable to us as you once were. And there was this idea in my mind that I couldn't conceptualize, and I couldn't shake the feeling of trying to be as good as I used to be. I couldn't shake this feeling of like trying to work my way back up to where I was after I experienced this pay cut in terms of the structure of the way that we were compensated. And so working past this, I ended up quitting my job on a whim. It was one of those things where I had been unhappy for a while, but I went up to my manager's desk and he had a complaint from a customer, and I couldn't contain it within myself to care. There was no way that I could care about what was going on. It was just, at this point, I felt so undervalued, and I felt like I had made this job my entire life, and to just see him complaining about something that was so minute and so insignificant and so, I quit. I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. At this point, this is detrimental to my brand. I've worked too hard for too long, and I'm no longer able to do this. And it was just such a moment of complete and utter honesty. And what happened next was that I found myself in the darkest night of the soul. If you're familiar with spiritual concepts, the dark night of the soul it's a part of the hero's journey, and it's a part of life that you're meant to experience because it shakes what you know to be true about yourself. I thought that I was leaving on this high note, and I was ready to take the world by storm. I was ready to show the world what I was capable of. I was ready to go out on my own. I came up with the idea for Alice and Ziggy. Life had other plans. My ideas were not grounded. My ideas were not ready for fruition. My ideas were not ready to come out into the world the way that they are now. And so I ended up leaving my apartment in Chicago, moving in with my dad. And I fell into a dark depression because the way that I had viewed myself had been so intertwined with my performance at work, where it was like once my identity had shifted, I didn't know how to view myself anymore. And not only that, I didn't know how to view myself favorably. I thought that the answer was to find a relationship. I kept seeking all of these external things that just were not making their way into my life. I would just go on these terrible hinge dates. I was like so depressed and so desperate to escape my reality. This is the coaching origin story. This is how I got into this work. So granted, I had experienced abundance from a very young age. From the time that I started my first job out of school, I made 6 figures from the time I was 22. I ended up leaving my job because of this pay cut. And then I just felt like the biggest loser on the planet because I was just like the only year in my history that I didn't end up making that amount of money was in 2019, which was the year that I rebuilt. It was the year that I founded my business and my company. The thing was about this time is that it forced me to go inward. And granted, this was before COVID, so it felt very socially unacceptable at the time that I was experiencing it and at the time that I was going through it. And so while this was happening, I felt like so alone and just so alone. And I'll never forget, I looked up the definition of the word manifest. And that was when I came across Manifestation Babe. And that was when I discovered the world of conscious manifestation. It's when I started to accept what was no longer in my life. And I was able to start to imagine a future that exceeded my current circumstances and my current reality. And so this was the first time I had ever come across this, and I came across it at a time of necessity when I was at my absolute lowest point in my life. This was the time where I was working at the bookstore. If you watched part 1 of the recording, this is the time where I came across the dollar bill that had the special serial number that made me kind of look at money a little bit differently. And it's when I started to actually be able to sit down with myself long enough to meditate. It's when I started to be like, you know what? I have nothing to lose. I'm going to give these tools and resources a try. It was when my identity had been tied to something and then I lost that external thing and I had to rebuild myself from the ground up. And that's when I started to work on my abundance mindset. That's when I started to work on wealth consciousness. That's when I started to consider that there was another way. The way that I had been successful in my 20s was very much through masculine force. It was very much hard work equals success, work ethic. The thing was, I didn't have the capacity to give that energy to my new employers. After I had experienced the heartbreak of my first employer and like things not working out and just devoting myself to a position that ultimately they were able to replace me and I wasn't able to replace it, it broke my heart. And I just, after a heartbreak, you learn resilience and you learn to show up differently. And that's exactly what I did. So when I showed up differently to these jobs, I could no longer rely on the pure hustle, which again was Adderall fueled. Okay, so it also wasn't even coming from a place of pure internal drive. It was external, but it was just after these losses, I didn't have that to give anymore because I was also building my business, and that was where primarily like my conscious work energy was flowing, and that was where I really wanted to see results. So my heart wasn't in it the same way. And with all this, I started to get smarter about the way that I was approaching things, and I had learned the hard lesson of don't intertwine your identity with an external factor that can be stripped away. And this isn't from a place of trauma. This was just, you could say, like, you get calloused, like you learn difficult lessons and it teaches you what you need to know so that you don't experience them again. That's the epitome of learning. But it was more, I started to develop who I was as a person internally and just loving myself in spite of the circumstances that told me that I was unworthy or made me feel like I was unworthy. I no longer gave those circumstances the weight. And I watched as my life continued to improve miraculously. The things that I accomplished, I don't even list them out anymore because it's just a laundry list from where I started to where I am at today. I used to have visualizations of sitting in this exact spot in my New York City apartment. This was my dream. I had paper cutouts of the New York City skyline on my nightstand. From my darkest days, I felt like just working for myself and living in New York City was like all I could dream about. And you know what? I loved myself in the unfolding of the processes of this happening, but that's not even my favorite part of my life today. My favorite part of my life today and the way that I define abundance is the way that I wake up without anxiety. The way that I don't need to overthink anything, the way that I trust myself, the way that I put my work out into the world in ways that used to scare the living daylights out of me, and now it's just part of who I am because I know that it serves a larger purpose. I know that this work is meant to help and meant to inspire and get you thinking about your own life and just not taking it so seriously. I used to struggle with every single decision I made. It felt like life or death. It felt like the stakes were so high. I didn't trust myself. But things always have a way of working themselves out. And my path and my transitions have enabled me to sit here with you today where there's arguably more uncertainty than I would have ever been able to handle in the past. And I look back at that past version of myself who dared to dream. And when you realize that something about your life today may be giving you uncertainty, it may be scaring you, but it may be something that you've also prayed for and something you've worked towards and something you've wanted to accomplish for so long, you've got to trust yourself. You've got to believe in what is destined for you. You've got to believe that things can get better because they can. And if you have the capacity to desire something, you will get to have that experience of living it out. I look at, okay, I left my 6-figure tech job to be an online life coach. That's an oversimplification. Obviously, I have my brand, we have the planners, I do other things, I'm a healer, we have collaborations. There's millions of ways to make money. You are never limited except for the ways that you limit yourself in your mind. So that's number one. If you are unhappy with the way that you're currently making a living, earning an income, know that there is always more options. This is the biggest lesson that I've learned this year is just the ability to be flexible, the ability to ask for guidance, the ability to just keep firm in believing in your vision when it looks to be impossible. I have to remind myself sometimes this is a conscious choice that I am making because I am worthy and desiring more. I didn't quit my job just so it's like I quit my job, well, I got fired for a reason, but it's because I'm in pursuit of my purpose, okay? I am in active pursuit of my purpose, and that is something you need to remind yourself when it feels like, why am I doing this? Should I just give up? No. If you think about it every single day, that is because it is what you are meant to do. It is what you are meant to pursue. You are in the process of walking out the person that you are meant to be, okay? So this took a little bit, I know we're talking about abundance here, but I needed to share from more of a place of heart-centeredness. I know that this is such an area where people feel shame, people feel guilt. It's like, let yourself breathe. You are so much more than A, the number that's reflected in your bank account, B, the things that you're choosing to do for work, and C, the spot that you're at right now. I do not care if you did not hit your goal this year. And guess what? You don't need to make it mean anything about you. I guarantee you, especially if you're watching this right now and you're looking to make you're looking to make 2024 better, we can get there. What does it matter where you're at currently? If you're able to accomplish great things, you can choose right now as your starting point. Right now is an opportunity to start over. Right now is an opportunity to choose again. Now that said, in order to make tangible, actual progress in your life, you need to be brutally honest with yourself about where you're at right now. And I say brutal honesty in the terms of tough love, in terms of like, get honest with yourself. Where are you at right now? And if it's not where you want to be, great, because that means that it is your starting point, and let it be your starting point. Be honest with yourself. Don't lie. Don't hide. The only time that I look at the first time that I actually made tangible, actual progress in my life when I was struggling financially was when I had a financial coach who actually I was able to be honest with, and I ditched the shame. I've said this and I will continue to say this every day throughout the challenge. I have never shamed myself into accomplishing anything worthwhile. And so the second that you ditch the shame and you stop worrying about where you're at and you think that it's permanent or that it means anything about you, is the second that you will achieve tangible, actual progress in your life towards the direction that you want to go. And so I really just wanted to talk about, in terms of like this year, if you didn't hit your goals, I do not care. And I'm not like, who cares what I think about your goals anyway, but neither should you. We're releasing that so that before we go into the energy of setting 2024 goals, we're actually going to feel good about what we're setting. All of the goals that I didn't hit because I set them from a place of lack. I sent them from like, I need to do this in order to do this. I need to do this or else. If that's the energy that you're setting your goals with, you're going to be met with or else energy. I need to do this or else. Okay, well, or else. What are you going to do now? Because you don't get to set the rules. I actually had the most incredible synchronicity today where I was looking through my time hop and there was an excerpt from a book that I had read 4 years ago. It's called A Happy Pocket Full of Money. It's one of my favorite abundant resource books. And it was talking about this idea of putting limitations on the limitless. And when you're putting limitations on money, like this needs to happen in this time frame. Like I need to be a millionaire in a year. I need to make $1 billion by this point. It's like you're limiting it and you're introducing fear and you're introducing parameters where there don't need to be any. And I am saying this from a place of pure love because this is what I did this year. I look at the goals that I had been setting from April financially. I was like, I was doing it so that I could leave my job. Like I need to pay rent through my business. And it was like doing this in like April and it was like not happening and it was frustration and it was putting all these limits and it was like losing the purpose of what this was all about to begin with. And it was almost putting the universe in a chokehold, and it was also just muddying and messing up my energy. And so to receive this message today, talking about releasing the shame, releasing the guilt, releasing the expectations that we're going into 2024 with, it just felt so perfect. And I'm going to share the exact excerpt from my like on my stories, and I'll tie it into this. But it was such a beautiful message of just, you're not as limited as you think you are. Like set goals that feel abundant and fun and good and fantasize and daydream and let yourself just think about how good things get to be as opposed to setting it as like, I need this to survive or else. And I know that we live in a physical 3D world. I know that bills are very real. I know that these things do quote unquote need to happen, but detach to how it has to happen and detach to it needing to happen this second. Open yourself up to miracles. Open yourself up to possibilities. Open yourself to the idea that each year gets to get better than the rest and that 2024 does get to be different. I really, really want to find this excerpt, but just set it from like an idea of like, how freaking amazing would it be if I got to do this next year? How fantastic. How beautiful, how remarkable, what a cherry on top. What kind of amazing things could I do if I set this goal for myself? How good does it get to get? Not from a stance of like, if I don't do this, I can't do this. That restrictive energy has never served me. And I doubt that it would serve you either. And I'm sharing this from my own personal experience because this is an area that I have extensively studied because it's an area where I've experienced the wave of life with this area. I've experienced lows. I've experienced highs. I've gotten, you know what I mean? It's like I've lived through it all. And so I am just sharing this message from the other side of just like, drop the shame and the guilt. Like, don't shame yourself into thinking you need to do something to be worthy or thinking you need to do something to be good enough because it's just not true. And I'm so passionate about this because I just think back to the ways that I've like shamed myself and made myself feel bad and like judged myself and just wished things were different. And like, there's even been instances where I've been dating people and I'm like, oh no, like I need like in terms of, first off, the sacral chakra is all tied into like love, sex, power. It's all the same energy center. So your relationship to yourself will, number one, it's change what you're attracting, but number two, it will also influence, like typically the pattern that you're experiencing with money will be the pattern that you're experiencing with relationships as well. So just looking into this, like, do you let yourself feel safe? Like, what would it feel like to have more than enough? What would it feel like to experience stability? What would it be like to experience predictability? And just letting yourself have that as opposed to this or else energy, like if this doesn't work, it means this about me. It doesn't mean anything about you. All that not hitting your goals means is that you didn't hit your goal. And there's something wrong with the goal. There's not something wrong with you. So while we're talking about different topics every single day, the premise is exactly the same because it's just choosing what you're going to apply this to. And this is why I believe in life alignment. And this is why I believe in just taking these different areas of life and evaluating them. And if it's not working in a specific area, like releasing what it means about you and just being willing to look at like the goals that you're setting and what you're doing a little bit differently. And I want to see if I can find this specific page because I had bookmarked it. It was like a screenshot on my phone. So, okay, here it is. Okay. An eternal moment of now is all that there is. You can remember the past and dream in the future, but you can only be, exist here now. Make an irrevocable commitment to yourself to make now the best moment of your life ever. Like the future, I think they say like forever is just comprised of nows. Like the only moment that you have is right now. So it does not matter where you've been to get here right now, but just remember that, okay? Do you feel as if you do not have enough time to do what you wish to do? People short on time on the outside and short of it on the inside. They think, act, and speak from a belief that they are short on time. Stop thinking and saying that you do not have enough time. Do not believe that for a second. The universe has no shortages of anything, including time, and neither do you. The only limitations or shortages are those that you build for yourself. Believing in any sort of shortage makes your consciousness smaller and slower so that you may experience what you believe in. So it's just this concept of like, you are enough. You have everything you need in this present moment to be successful, and the desire to change is the first step. So your homework for today is to just get brutally honest with where you are at in your life. This is in terms of your financial situation, in terms of your abundance, in terms of what you have, in terms of what you need to release. Get honest with yourself and let things shift. Let things change. It gets to be better. Today is your starting point, and that is a beautiful place to be. So today we are just getting intimately aware of what we are. I want you to make a list of all of the money that you currently have in your possession. And this is like, make a list in terms of like retirement accounts, savings accounts, cash you have laying around the house. I don't care. It can be euros. Count your coins. Like, identify exactly where you're at. Write down your credit score. Like, today is your starting point. Okay? So anything that's happened in the past does not matter, but you need to get intimately aware of where you're at in this moment if you expect to change. How can you grow if you don't measure where you're at? Okay? So that's what we're going to do. That is your assignment for today. And similarly to yesterday, where yesterday we did a 24-hour gratitude challenge where we wrote down everything we had to be grateful for that crossed our paths in 24 hours. What you're going to do is make an abundance list for the next 24 hours. Make a list of either experiences that happen that make you feel abundant, money that you come into, things that you find, accounts that you check that you didn't even know about, and just start to observe all of the ways that abundance is already in your experience and in your energetic field. I love you so freaking much. Thank you for joining me for parts 1 or parts 2. If you didn't check out the beginning, there's an amazing meditation for part 1. I love you. I love you so much, and I'm so excited for you to experience the rest of the magic of this challenge. I've set the intention that every single day gets to be better than the last, and we are already off to an amazing start. I love you so much. Have an amazing day. Have an amazing end to 2023. I will see you tomorrow for day 4 of the 2023 Goal Detox. I love you. Bye. Thank you. Thank you so much. I needed to reset the energy, and I'm feeling so much better now, and that was just like, I hope you got what you needed out of this. Should I just end it at 22:22? I'm going to be obnoxious and do that. Hold on. 19, 20, 21, 22.